Welcome to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima podcast, where we dive into real conversations that shape our professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Fatima Nash, and today we're exploring a topic that so many of us wrestle with, yet rarely discuss openly: imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like you're not good enough, like your success is a result of luck, or that you don't truly deserve your accomplishments? You're not alone. Imposter syndrome impacts high achievers, leaders, professionals at all levels, and even the ones who seem to have it all together. In this episode, we'll break down what imposter syndrome is, how it sneaks into our mindset, and most importantly, how you can push back against it. Together, we'll share insights, stories, and actionable strategies to help you embrace your worth and own your success. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Good morning and welcome to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima podcast, Imposter, Intersectionality with my boy, Greg Kruchko. Greg, please take a moment and introduce yourself.
What's up? Happy to be here. Greg Kruchko. I'm originally from the East Coast, not far from Fatima in Fairfax County, Virginia. But right now I'm in Denver, Colorado. I've been here for about 8 years. And I've been frame myself two ways, I guess. As a Coloradan, very much like an outdoors enthusiast. Like I want to go out and be active and do fun things. Been doing a lot of skiing recently, which has been great. And professionally, the tech strategy executive. I focus on helping smaller tech companies, larger tech companies think about their next wave of growth. How can we scale products globally or into new markets or into what have you? And there's a love helping solving tough problems.
Yeah, I love that. You are a whiz at solving tough problems, and that's kind of how we met. And as you know, I've been spending a lot of time with our colleagues talking about fraud feelings and imposter syndrome. And I'm just so grateful that you agreed to come on and share your perspective, because I got to tell you, ladies, what you see is what you get. Because when I met Greg, I call him G, I was starstruck. I said, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to learn anything about anything he's teaching me because I can't get away from his handsome demeanor and his intellect. And we started to have such a tight relationship, and I learned that he has imposter syndrome too. And so over the years, we've chatted, and he's held my hand through tough conversations and tough situations where I thought that maybe I wasn't showing up the way I needed to. I am a girl that is after a small time business, not a big organization like the one we met in. So I was really intimidated coming in. So I'm going to say this out loud and embarrass you even more so than I already have. G, thank you very much for all your support and your hand holding and you telling me that my feelings were fraud coming over through that acquisition. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. And I'm excited to have this conversation. I think it'd be fun. Like, you and I have developed an awesome relationship and you've been super supportive as well. So
absolutely.
More than happy to have you. It's gonna be fun.
All right. So let's get into it. So I can't imagine someone that has your resume, your background, your intellect struggles with imposter syndrome. So talk to me about your definition of imposter syndrome.
I would say it just takes so many shapes and sizes and forms, and it could be, I could walk into a meeting and like I know that I've been preparing for weeks or years, my entire life, and like be like, man, that's what the chief executive officer, or that's what the board, or that's with whoever, and like, you're like, I'm not ready for this. Like, dude, you are ready for this. Like you've been training your whole life. Or you could walk into a coffee chat and just like, hey, you're trying to get to know somebody, and like, that person has the resume that you want. And you're like, my resume is great, but their resume, like that's the resume I want. And be like, how do I talk to that person to be like, I'm on your level. I understand what you're going through. We can relate on all these different ways. And like, I was having a conversation with this dude that he's ultimately now kind of like in a board of directors type of role for like venture capital backed fit tech companies. And I was like, you did exactly what I want to do. And I like just pulling out things and just trying to figure out like, how do I relate to you on this level? And like, at its core, he's a normal guy who like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he wants to get to know somebody and like he wants to like interact on a personal level. And sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
just got to take a step back and be like, this person is also a human that has their
Mm-hmm.
own insecurities, that has, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they were you a decade ago. And like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we can
Mm-hmm.
relate it on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that you said that. Because you know that I'm such a Jay-Z fan, and I have to remind myself that Jay-Z and I share the same number of hours in a day. And so if he can be successful, that means I could be successful too. I know it's so corny, but really, everyone puts on their pants the same way, right? If
Right.
you have two legs, you do it the same way.
Right.
And so it's just important to always, and I appreciate that point, to always take a step back and recognize that we're all just humans trying to make it, right? We're all here trying to do the same thing, and that everybody has insecurities, and they show up differently in different ways. So you are a, how do you say, a triathlete, because you have so
Triathlete.
many. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that. You know, I barely get to walk on a regular basis, so I'm not all athletic like you are. So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, as an athlete, I can imagine that you have to push down those fraud feelings when you want to compete, not only with yourself but with others as well. So tell us a little bit about that and how that might show up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, similarly, it just takes all shapes and sizes. Like, you know, right now I'm going through a little bit of knee recovery. And, you know, that the genesis of that is I was overtraining for triathlon. And, you know, because of that, I started ignoring my mobility or ignoring my strength or ignoring my whatever. And like now I'm like, I want to go skiing or I want to go run again. And I have to remind myself that like, A, I'm mentally strong enough to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
B, that like I've done it before. And so like
Mm-hmm.
you could translate that into so many different places of like, you know, when I'm working with like
Mm-hmm.
junior folks on my team,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, like we're gonna go see the CEO and be like, don't worry about the CEO. Like think about how you show up with me and how you show
Mm-hmm.
up with me. And let's
Mm-hmm.
extrapolate that into like something
Absolutely.
bigger, right? And so like, you know, if I'm getting ready for a race, be like, I crushed a 1 mile run. And like think about how you crushed that 1 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the midterm, you're like, oh my God, but this is a 6 hour thing. This isn't a 1 mile run, but just like break it down into a segment or break it down into an accomplishment you've had or break it down into whatever. But like I will look at a track, I will look at a swimming pool, I will look at a hill to ride a bike on, and I'll be like, that is bigger and badder than anything I've ever done. And like that's not the way you want to frame it. You want to take a step back and be
Right.
like, I can climb the segments on that hill, or I can swim half the pool and then swim the next half. And like, you know, it shows up in so many different facets. And
Mm-hmm.
taking a step back and being like, you got this. Like, you've done
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
You have the repetitions to prove that you've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And you could apply
Mm-hmm.
that to sport. You could apply that to work. You could apply that to friendships, romantic relationships.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
across.
Absolutely. What I loved about what you said about breaking things out in segments, you know, the how we got to know each other is through your tech strategy offering, right? Like you're an executive and you're a badass. And so you really taught us during this project that we were on together to really think strategically and not try to boil the ocean and take that approach step by step. Do you think that your strategic brain came first in figuring that out, or do you think that the need for you to break things out in smaller bits to overcome fear came first? I would love to hear your perspective on that.
I would say the strategy brain uh, was a product of other other things in my life that kind of like got me to thinking strategically. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, something when I was growing up is like I was always moving around because my dad was moving around, and so like I was like, all right, like how do I make a new friend? How do I
Mm-hmm.
immerse myself in this new culture? How do I,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever those things are? And like I was always presented with new problems growing up
Mm-hmm.
that were
Mm-hmm.
as a child like more existential, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I do not figure this out, like I'm going to be a loser or I'm going to be, you know, whatever that the, you know, kids are worrying about. And I think
Mm-hmm.
over time I developed like a couple different tools, and like some of those were like EQ tools of like how do I
Mm-hmm.
relate on like a human level, even though I'm in a new town, new friends, and like I'm scared as shit. Like I'm not confident. I don't know these
Right.
people. And so like I
Right.
think like some like EQ tools are developed, but like also I think like it also helped me think about like, all right, I have this problem I'm trying to solve, which is like I want to fit in and like I want to be accepted and I want to make friends and like, you know, all of those things. And I think you just extend that to the boardroom and you're like, hey, like this member of the board or the entire board is like, I'm so concerned about investing in this new product. And be like, yeah, I get it. Like let me relate to you and be like, you know, we can think about this globally and be like, over the next 20 years, this is how you should think about it. But more importantly, like after you have that vision down the road, you need to be thinking about it about like in 3 months and 6 months and 1 year and 2 years. And like it's just everything we're doing is a big problem that we're trying to solve. And the more you can think about the problem on multiple horizons, but also like we've been talking about, like it's somebody like you or like me on this side of the desk that has real fear about like what they have going on. And if you can show up and say like, I've thought about this problem from a different angle than you have, and you can put them at peace and just be like, we're both people and like we both have our issues, and just relate and think about what's the best way to communicate this to them to relieve their concern. Like I think it's a real powerful skill set.
Oh my goodness. I love everything you said. I wrote down so many things. And rule number one of podcasting is that I'm not supposed to talk as much, and you know that is a problem. So I'm going to try to not lose. So I am really big on building a toolbox. I visualize a toolbox in my head when I have to problem solve. I'm very, very, very um, expressive and illustrative is really what it is. And when I will use this for every single coaching conversation I have and every other podcast that I host. You you made a point of going back to the root solution or the root reason we're all here, and we're all here to problem solve. So if I'm coming into a situation not knowing the language, not knowing the brand, not knowing the audience, I'm coming, that may be true, but I'm also coming to the table to problem solve. So that means if I'm coming to the table with other like minded people that also want to problem solve, I should not be nervous. It sounds like I should not be nervous and have imposter syndrome because my ideas may be unique because we're all coming with a commonality of solving a problem. Is that what I heard?
I think you know it's easier to say that than it is to do it. 100%. Like
Sure, sure.
don't get me wrong, but I think so. Like I was talking to a founder recently. He's in the tech space, and he's like, look, like we just lost $100 million in recurring revenue annually. We've got these like fierce competitors. We've got, you know, all this stuff, and he's like, you, Greg, like, and also like, you know, when somebody throws you a bone like this, it's so nice, and like it sort of like removes the imposter shield a little bit of like,
Yeah.
you've done this with the biggest companies in the world. You've done this with the medium
Right.
companies in the world. And like,
Right.
you know, I think just pivoting a little bit of like throwing that bone out to people, like it helps them break down their own barriers. So like, anyway, when somebody does that for you, like
Good point.
you use that. Um,
Mhm.
and so like, I was like, look, like I don't know your space, but I know how to grow a company. And so like, I
Mhm.
spent a week just like researching the industry, and I came back and I was like, hey, this is how I would think about it. And he was blown away. And he's a founder, he's a serial entrepreneur. He, you know, he's done all these great things in his life, and he needed somebody to like just take a different lens. And like I came in
Mhm.
clean to the issue
Mhm.
and just use my past experiences. And I think you can just apply that, you know,
Mhm.
universally. Like we all have these really unique experiences that,
Mhm.
you know, if you sit, if I, you know, did this and just sat in the room by myself, I'd be like, oh my God, do I? But then you actually do
Right.
the work, do some of the thinking, and just, you know, build your own confidence up a little bit. And
Mhm.
I think you can really just make a big difference for people that, you know, are in your life currently, or people that are new to your life, and like help them think through things.
Yeah, I love that a lot about recognizing your own talent and what you might bring to the table. That may be different. And of course, if you sit in a room by yourself all day and think, then of course you're not going to accept that. But it's when you share and you're transparent and you're vulnerable with your thoughts, that is where you get the external validation. And anyone that says, I don't need in the outside world to tell me anything, you're a liar. You're a liar. You
Oof.
do. And it is about filtering out what you need and what you don't need. And you don't need a ton of validation from the outside, but with anything, you have to test the market. You have to test to make sure how you are showing up is how you're intending to show up, and that is being received to whoever your market is or whoever you're working with. So that I love that a lot. When you think about coming, like talking to this big serial entrepreneur, I think you coined him. And you going and not, going in and looking, researching, and maybe not knowing the answer, and maybe at 7 days later researching the market and having different perspective. What did you have any fraud feelings during those times? Did you feel confident that you were going to be able to have a perspective? Or talk to me a little bit about your process there.
Oh, totally. Like we had one introductory call, like more of like a coffee chat, and he was like, "I've got a X $1 million company. I have these XY goals, and I've done this many times. And I heard you're a smart dude." And I was like, "I've never run my own business.
Right.
I've never tried to fight with getting funding. I've never tried to figure out how to like get brand new clients in a space that I've never worked in before. Like." I probably sat there for 48 hours and was like, "Oh shit, this is a big problem that
I need." Yeah.
And I was like, I think one of the things for me, at least for imposter syndrome, is recognizing and maybe spending a little bit of time in this idea that like this is scary and this is big. But then, as I said earlier, like looking back at your book of business or your record or your resume or whatever, I think also like just the people that write books, write blogs, write whatever, there's the blank page problem, right? Like you're staring at a blank page. It could be a PowerPoint, it could be a Word document, it could be a whatever. And like I stared at that metaphorical black page for 48 hours and I was like, I don't even know where to begin.
Where to start.
Right. But then I stopped and I was like, I've had the biggest companies in the world ask me to do this for them. Like why am I having an issue with a company that makes a couple $100 million in revenue? Even though it's a space I don't know, even though I'm not a CEO, even though I'm not an entrepreneur, even though I've never started my own thing from A to B. I was like, I can do this for a tens of billions of dollar company. I should be able to do it for hundreds of millions of dollar company. And like once I started actually putting the words on the paper, I just started flowing and like building the momentum. And I feel like it's, you have a conversation with the document, like just like you and me having a conversation, like start typing and like it'll flow.
I love that.
You might have to edit yourself. You might have to QA yourself. You might have to like go back and like quadruple check your work. But like that process in its own is just going to start building confidence for you. And it did for me, where at the end of the day, I was like, I feel like I could sit down with this guy's SLT and I could have this conversation because like I did the homework.
That's right. So you prepared yourself, right? That's one of the tools in my toolbox. And we've worked together, so I don't play around with being prepared. Probably take it to extra levels that I don't need to take it to. We rolled in. Remember that time we were in? It was like a 3-day meeting. We were in Tennessee, and I had like a 4-foot suitcase, and you were like, "Girl, like, where are you going?" And I was like, "Well, if this happens, I need this, and then if that happens, this is going to happen, and I need to make sure, and from a woman's perspective, I'm sure the ladies that can relate that we like to be prepared, but that metaphor, although it's lighthearted, it's how I combat my imposter syndrome. I pack for it because there's nothing more important than you and everybody else knowing that I am calm in here. That doesn't mean that I am. But I need to do whatever I got to do to make you know that I am not going to fumble this ball. I'm not going to blow this conversation. And that imposter syndrome, it like walks around for me anyways. It like just sits right here. Sometimes she's active, sometimes she's not, but she's always there to tell me, I don't think you can do it. So having the data to go back and look and confirm in my own database of where I've done this before and I could be successful. And also bringing the right outfits with me. That also helps a whole lot.
Totally.
Being able to transform into, who you need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can relate. I might not bring the extra large like bag with me, but like if I don't feel like, my hair looks good, or if my glasses aren't askew, like there's just like certain things that give you
Mm-hmm.
the grounding and the
That's right.
confidence. Like ahead of this call, I was like, well, shit, I've never been on a podcast before. Like, what do I need to do to get ready for this? And I was like, well, the first thing you need to do is like go do your hair, and it's like
Number
just
one.
yeah, exactly. So there's like small things that build on each other. Of
Right.
if you build a little bit of internal momentum, it really makes a difference. And
Yeah.
yeah, I hear you. I woke up with some imposter syndrome this morning, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna go talk to one of my favorite people, and we've had conversations just like this
Just like
100
this
times.
for
Yeah,
years.
but it's in front
Yeah.
of an audience now, and I'm like,
Right.
oh shit, I
Right.
gotta get
Right.
ready for that.
Right. No, I mean, I've been doing this for a few months now and I'm really enjoying it. But every time I have to do it, I'm like, how's it gonna go? Am I, I have to go back and look at this footage after I'm done. Am I gonna like it? And what I realized in kind of it's kind of interesting because we hadn't had this conversation about just throw something out there and go, but that's what I've been doing with this whole project is just throwing something out there and going because I know that this is an important topic. It's really important to me, so I'm assuming it's important to others. But I'm doing it and just doing it no matter what, and that beats your imposter syndrome when you just try. You said it. You looked at a black screen for 48 hours and was like, what the fudge? And then you just started throwing things. The next thing you know, you were sitting like this is how I heard you say it. Like, you're getting into my crazy creative brain here, but like you're sitting there in your gray sweatpants and you're kind of lounging and you don't have the right glasses on and your hair is kind of messy and you're just staring at that screen for 48 hours. But then in 7 days, you have that power, that white button up shirt that you used to wear all the time where you had to present like that, like debonair look about you. Like, and so I imagine once you flipped that screen and it became colorful and it wasn't just black, you also had your white, crisp, I'm presenting today's shirt on, and you were able to have that confidence, and you're going to be able to earn that guy's business. But most importantly, you're going to help be able to solve his problem. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're absolutely right. Like your metaphor is spot on. Like, you know, in like in the Nashville meeting, like I probably had on that white shirt, I probably had on that
Uh
blazer,
huh.
and
Mm-hmm.
in there was the preparation behind it that made me feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
I would not have felt
Mm-hmm.
comfortable wearing that same outfit if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't done the weeks of work. In the
Absolutely.
time that I do put on that outfit and I have not done the preparation, the imposter syndrome is worse when I'm standing up in the front of the room.
Loud.
Yeah, like in the back of my mind, and I'm stuttering, I'm not eloquent, I'm not organized, and like I might be looking the same, but I'm not
Right.
feeling the same.
Right. Oh my God. Okay. So look, when I get like that, that's when the extra sass and the attitude of Fatima comes out even worse because I have to make sure that you don't know that I'm scared and I'm nervous because I got this imposter girl just going yapping, yapping, yapping in the side of my ear. But I'm also need to be poised and I need to make sure that I'm presenting myself correctly. So anything that comes in the way of that is aggression and
Yeah,
it's mean and it's not very nice. And so I've also recognized no matter how nice and sweet I'd want to be, I'm probably not showing up like that if I'm stressed, thinking, having fraud feelings. So that plays a part too. As a leader, you have to watch that.
yeah, absolutely. And like in that situation when you're standing up there and like those feelings will come in the middle of a sentence, and dealing with it live, like dealing with it in front of a blank page is one problem, or dealing with it before an issue is one problem, but
Yeah,
dealing with it live is like a completely different issue. And
whole
like
different. Mm-hmm.
as somebody that likes to talk to a therapist on a weekly basis, like it's like, how do I,
You do.
yeah, and I recommend it to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with those internal feelings,
Mm-hmm.
like in the midst of it, and being like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, you got this, like you did the
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the
Mm-hmm.
resume, you
Mm-hmm.
you, you put on the blazer, like
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of like small things which
Mm-hmm.
sound stupid and sound easy, but like if you just build
It's
them
hard.
into that muscle memory and just keep building and keep building, and like it's just like training. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
like you run that 1 mile, you can run 13, you can run
Right.
26, you can,
That's
but
right.
you have to build. the confidence in the small things that allow you to like stand up in front of that board with your crisp white shirt on and be like,
That's right.
I got this.
I got this. Yeah. And it's also, I say this on every show. I say to my kids, you have to go back and smell your roses, AKA go back and look at your data. Go back, go back, go back. Because the reason why imposter syndrome for me shows up is because I want excellence. We all know that perfection it's not a thing. But in my mind, I wake up every single day being like, I'm going to be perfect today. And so the effort to try to get me to perfection will slow me down when imposter syndrome is rampant. And so to me, I have to go back and be like, okay, first of all, even if you stutter, even if your tongue gets really heavy, you know what I'm talking about? Like you feel like your tongue is swollen when you're talking in front of a massive audience. It's so nerve-wracking to me. I get so embarrassed. And that's when my humor comes out. I don't know if you realize that, but I get extra sassy and extra humorous when I'm messing up because I need y'all to be distracted because I forgot what I was supposed to say, right? Like it's a little tool that I use. But I really do believe that that's just being normal. And if we can just break away from society thinking that we're going to be, kind of in fourth grade again, and people are going to laugh at you when you're stuttering reading your book out loud, that's what it feels like, right? And so you're not gonna laugh at me if I stutter on this show or if I'm in a room full of 100 people. And even if you do, screw you, right? Like I cared when I was 5, but I don't care at 45. Like, and I shouldn't, because I've had such a long runway of successes. 0 to 5, you really don't have that much successes. You don't really know who you are. So you might get a little offended when somebody is, joking on you for not pronunciating correctly some Dr. Seuss or whatever. But you got to go back and look at your history, y'all. You have to go back and smell your roses. And I promise you that will get you through the tough conversation. It'll get the sweats down a little bit. It'll help you execute that PowerPoint. It'll help you execute your point in front of a live audience. So yeah. Okay. Totally. So what else? You've taught us so much already. What else do we need to know about the intersectionality of imposter syndrome, being an athlete, being a tech strat executive, being what people might perceive as a privileged white male in society that has imposter syndrome? Can we go there a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think one thing that is kind of the mirror to this, which I alluded to a little bit, is you need people around you to be doing well and to be feeling confident and to help you show up, and also like I'm a big pay it forward kind of guy, and like I wouldn't be where I am if someone didn't pay it forward for me. And so like how do I take care of the people like around me and beneath me to like make sure that they feel appropriate. And I think like it's taking the extra time, it's taking the one extra phone call, it's taking the one extra meeting, it's taking the email that you send to them or the text message that you send to them and be like, hey, you really crushed that. Like you went above and like to your Rose's point, like if people don't do that for each other, like we all got to build each other up, and like it's not going to happen if we just if I'm just sitting in this seat thinking about me.
Good point.
So I can look at like several people that you and I worked with, that didn't do this. Many people that you and I worked with that didn't do this, but several people that did, and like they're so well accomplished and they're so busy, and they took the extra 30 minutes with me to be like, dude, you could have a conversation with anybody and you would rock it. And like, you need to hear that sometimes. And it's like, it's not fair that some people don't do that for you. So, I try to keep that in mind in everything that I do, of like, I wouldn't be where I am today unless somebody at some point in my history paid it forward for me. That could be an elementary school teacher. It could be a high school teacher. It could be my basketball coach. It could be a whole multitude of people. I don't know how good this metaphor is, or this application of this learning is, but in high school, I was like second string basketball player, and my coach yelled at me every day, and I hated it. And I'm like, you hate me. And he's like, no, I think you're awesome. And the reason I'm yelling at you is because I think you have so much goddamn potential.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
don't, in work, I would not recommend yelling. I don't think it accomplishes
Probably
anything.
not. Mm-mm.
But the idea of, I want to spend an extra 10 minutes with you every day because I think you have so much potential. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really powerful. And I think people
Mm-hmm.
either don't apply that lesson well, or like, I think if you're a junior and you're getting that extra 10 minutes a day, just like check in and just be like, hey, is it because I'm so close, or is it because I have a lot
Ask the
to figure out?
questions. That's right.
Yeah, like make sure you understand if like it's
Mm-hmm.
they're probably not mad at you. They're probably spending the extra
Mm-hmm.
time with you because they think you have a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's one thing I would say. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
you could apply that anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I could say is like, you know, I agree. White man, like I did start with some privilege. You know,
Just a
I had
little. Just a little.
yeah, absolutely. No disagreement there. I had grandparents that went to college. I had my parents that went to college. My dad has a master's degree. Like I started with a ton of privilege. But I also started in a family that was like, you know, more middle class, and like, you know, I didn't have like, you know, the silver spoon in my mouth that some people
Sure.
did. And
Sure.
I also had the opportunity to, you know, travel a lot, which in hindsight, I wouldn't trade for the world. But at the time was so hard. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, how do I make friends? Like how do I
Mm-hmm.
do this? And like I started from my freshman year of high school, after living in other places for every year before that. And I was like, I'm a loser. And, you know, trying to figure out like how to fit in the world and like, you know, exhibit your intelligence and exhibit your personality. And, you know, you made the joke about using humor as a defensive tactic. Like, I think that's why I'm partially funny is because like I had to do something to like
Yes.
deflect or to, you know,
Yes.
whatever, so I could like endear myself to people. Um, and I think, you know, along the way, like it doesn't matter where you go to school, it doesn't matter like what you do. Like when I was applying to colleges, I'm like, man, if I don't go to the best freaking school I can, like I'm screwed. And then like I did the same thing in grad school. I'm like, if I don't go to the best freaking school I can, like I'm screwed. And I've worked with people now that like I don't even know the college, like the name of the college that they went to. I was like, I've never even heard of that place, but like you're a rock star.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of like time and maturity of like being like we're all people, we all have our weaknesses, we all have our strengths, and like this person that went to madeupuniversity.com, like they're a rock star, and like
Mm-hmm.
I should never have like doubted myself to be like this degree isn't good enough, this grade isn't good enough. You know, I feel like I wish I gave myself a little more grace when I was on my way up.
Mm-hmm.
To say that like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got this, and like your best is probably better than a lot of other people out there.
Right.
And you know, I dealt with that all through college, all through my first job, partly through grad school. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I was, you know, with our former employer, like
Mm-hmm.
I was having this promotion stick dangled in front of me, and like I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I know I can do this, but for some reason the firm isn't telling me that I
Mm-hmm.
can. And
Mm-hmm.
like I would spiral. Like I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
sleep, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
eat, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would be like, well, what do I do to figure it out? And so I would just go back to the small things and be like, okay, if I
Mm-hmm.
write these emails better, if I show up with my hair combed, if I whatever those things are to build my internal confidence, because like I
Yeah.
know I can do it, but
Mm-hmm.
you just something's gonna knock you down, and you just got to take a step back. You can
Mm-hmm.
spiral. I spiraled.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period of
Mm-hmm.
time where I ate a pint of
Mm-hmm.
ice cream every night. Like
Mm-hmm.
just step back and
Mm-hmm.
just be like, you got this.
Yeah.
How do I take the small little building blocks
Mm-hmm.
and apply it here? And it
Mm-hmm.
it's powerful, and
It is powerful.
actually lifts you up a little bit more than you would
Mm-hmm.
anticipate.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure your a therapist tells you to write things down. Mine does. And so it helps with the record keeping
Yep.
of what you've done, right? Because you can't help but to write down like how was your day, what you accomplished today, and what your action item is for the next time, and all that stuff, right? It's super helpful and it allows you to go back and kind of see all of that. But it also allows a different part of your brain to process a part of you that is so special, right? You don't ever have to share with anybody, but like I encourage everybody, even if you don't have a therapist, write your stuff down. You'll be surprised all the things that you were able to accomplish in a month. You
Yeah.
start writing in on March 1st, and then you go back and check on April 1st, you're gonna be like, holy crap, I'm amazing. I should be doing X, Y, and Z. Like you just don't look at yourself that way. And the other thing that I want people to gain from this conversation is your employer cannot validate you. I repeat, your employer cannot validate you. It is time over money. I am providing a service that I am exceptionally good at, and you're paying me market value for my services. You're not my parents, you're not my spouse. You do not have to love me. I want you to. And if you're a Fatima, you're going to work really, really, really hard to make sure everybody does. But that's not the game, actually. The game is I'm learning a skill. You're paying me to learn. I'm taking that in. I'm building a better Fatima. I'm building a Fatima factory of goodness. And that is how you have to think about it. Because if you think about it that way, you look at things as stepping stones, not imposter episodes. Because for all of my life, every new opportunity was a new opportunity for me to fight with myself. And I lost a lot of times because that imposter girl, she be winning. So go to therapy, write your journals, keep yourself in positive spaces. Know when it's time to go in any situation, work, relationship, whatever. What else can take us home, G?
I mean, I think those are all good summary points. I would say like, you know, just get comfortable with the fact that on a day-to-day basis, or I'm constantly doing this. Let's make this about me. I am constantly on a day-to-day basis being like, how do I be the better version of me? How do I not be so worried about contacting the next founder? How do I not be so worried about reaching for the next job that I want? Like I was in process interviewing with this company and they were like, hey, we want to bring you in at the vice president level. I'm like, great. And then they said, you know what, we're changing our hiring strategy. We want to bring you in at a lower level. And so I called the senior vice president. I'm like, no, you call
That's
me
right.
when you are hiring for the vice president position. I'm not going to go through the rigmarole for this position that I'm not worthy of. And I was stressing about that. And I did it. And I'm so glad that I did it. But like, you know, you need to take the time to think, or I need to continue to take the time to think about like, what am I worth? What's important to me? And how do I make myself happy? And I think the constant battle of like the imposter syndrome of making that call and telling the guy, nope, I'm not going to do that. Like it's hard, but it's something that like it's building the muscle memory. Like
It
I can
is.
climb
It is.
I can climb that hill. I can say no. I can do the work. I'm valuable enough and I'm smart enough to know my worth and like really putting your foot down to make that happen.
Absolutely. What I love about this dialogue and our relationship so much is that obviously you have a different perspective being a white male in America than I do. But the commonality is that we just want to solve problems. And so we go back to the fact that you have fraudulent feelings. It does not matter where you come from, how you look, what your hair texture is like. Everyone has those feelings inside. And it's about what you do with them, the paying it forward, the slowing down, the teaching people. There was one thing, and I know we're almost out of time, but there was one point that I wanted to make, and it keeps coming back, so I have to make it. We were in, I don't know which city weren't we in the last 2 years together, but we were in some city in some stuffed up boardroom. You know, I can't really, you know how I like to dance and like do all that stuff. We couldn't do it in that room because it was tight.
Yeah.
And we had one of your analysts come in, and I was the one with the swollen tongue because I was presenting, and she came in, and you were locked into me. You didn't see her coming in behind you, and she she was sitting down. You were coming in, and she went to go stand up so that you can sit down. And I didn't even have to say anything because I was like, oh, and I'm in mid presenting, and you were like, I got it, sit. And that moved me. I don't have any Kleenex in my office, so I can't be crying. But that moved me so much because we were in mode. We had to get some things accomplished that day, and we weren't really thinking about each other's feelings and everybody's feelings. But she was literally going to give up a young lady, a junior analyst was going to give up her seat for your executive ass, and you stopped it. And that is the in essence of paying it forward. It's not only about the extra 10 minutes in the one-on-one or the extra teams message. It's the fact that you're able to be a human being as an executive. That is what I'm talking about. That is the reason for me wanting to sit at that table with you. So I wanted to share that. It kept coming in my mind. So I thank you for allowing us to go a little bit over to share that important story with our audience.
Of course. This has been a blast.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm glad we could do it. And I hope we shared some cool stuff.
We did.
I'm having imposter syndrome now. I'm like, shit, was that stuff that interesting that I just said?
Hell yeah. You'll see. Yeah. And when people want to come and talk to you about how interesting our content was today and our dialogue, where can they find you?
Go to LinkedIn, go to, there's all the way to LinkedIn /IN/ I think there's one more slash than my name. So it's Greg Kruchko. And I'm happy to chat with folks there. And I love having conversations. So, let's start there and let's keep it going. And I'm happy to talk to all sorts of folks.
Yeah, we got more problems to solve. Look, we still young. We still got it, right? We got problems to solve.
We got a lot of problems
tons of time. Yeah, we do. I look forward to more problem solving with you, G. Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima, Imposter Syndrome, Intersectionalities with my very privileged boy, G. Thank you, G, for coming on. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.